Can you adapt to shock? Or will you withdraw, pushing your limits or egoic competition? Attunement to truth and what's safe and healthy, or fear of the future? The continuation of emotionality, and we're going to see willpower amped up even more. These are all pressures, qualities, and questions that this cycle of the Human Design Weather for April 4th to 10th, 2026 bring. Hello, and welcome to the Human Design Weather or Not podcast with me, Margot Fraser. Let's just jump right in here. This cycle begins on April 4th at 3:43 p.m., going until the 10th at 9:01 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time, UTC, Universal Time Coordinates. That's starting April 4th at 9:43 p.m., going until the 10th at 3:01 p.m. So remember to convert that to your own time zone so you know when it starts and ends for you. We always start with the Sun-Earth activations as that 70% of the conditioning field. Both are activating individual traits this cycle. So we'll have those individual themes of mutation, a pulse of knowing that can come in like that, and the potential to be individually empowered. The sun has moved into gate 51, the trait of shock in the ego center, also called the heart center. The ego center is a motor that provides willpower. This is the only individual trait in the ego center. All the rest are tribal. It brings the power to leap out of the homogenization of the tribe and into the unknown of your unique individual way. When you leave the tribe, well, it can be shocking. There are things you're going to have to navigate, new things that you're going to be initiated into. You're going to find new depths within. Or not. This is the heart of the warrior that can be equally brave or foolish. Its keynote says the ability to respond to disorder and shock through recognition and adaptation. This is a trait that can bring the courage to test yourself. Yes, there's competitiveness here, but ideally, it's not about a power play, a way to have power over another. It's about rising up and having the courage to develop yourself. When you respond to the shock of a challenge or something new and rise up and adapt, it can be very empowering. And these challenges are something that you can learn to handle better and better as you gain life experience. And just a note that shocks can include good surprises too. However, this ego trait could also have you taking foolish risks to prove something to others, especially if you have an undefined heart center. It's white in your chart. There can also be this lower level competitiveness that comes out to win at the expense of the other or others. There could also be withdrawing rather than adapting when something shocking happens. That's not necessarily wrong, by the way. If your strategy and authority is guiding you to withdraw, then that's what you do. But if it's out of the mind's fears, then you'll be missing out on the wisdom in the process. Gate 51 is being grounded in the Earth's position. Gate 57, the trait of intuitive insight in the Splenic Centre. The Splenic Centre is our most primitive awareness center associated with survival, health, and well-being. Its keynote says the extraordinary power of clarity, and it brings an awareness of whether to struggle for clarity or not. Intuitive in this context means an acoustic knowing in the now. This is a trait that's very attuned to frequency. It's the gate of the right ear that hears in the now. It's like the ears of the immune and the lymphatic system that are listening for, is this safe for me or not? Is this healthy for me or not? Is this true or not? It's not only taking in the sound frequencies through the right ear, it's really a whole body attunement through your immune and lymphatic system to vibration. You may experience a pulse of knowing in the now about whether something you hear or an environment you're in is safe and healthy, or whether something that you hear is true or not. This isn't the ajna. It's not the mind. So it's not about making sense or being logical. It is just this knowing in the now. Now, every gate in the Splenic Centre carries a primal fear. And here it's the fear of the future, the fear of the unexpected. What a pair, right? We've got the gate of shock paired with this gate that, yes, has this fear of the future and unexpected. If you experience that with this trait, this fear of the future coming in, it's really a reminder to come back to the present. That's where this trait operates, in the now. Individual traits can pulse into melancholy as well. For gate 51, the trait of shock, it's the melancholy that there's nothing exciting happening or that you won't be able to break out of a tribal role. And for gate 57, it's the melancholy that comes in through whatever is heard acoustically. Individual traits are also not here to be influenced by others. So you may generally find for yourself and others this quality of not wanting to be interfered with. We're in uncertain times, so do your best to allow these individual traits to support you in navigating any shocks and what's safe for you in the moment. Of course, ultimately, you need to follow your own strategy and authority, but wisdom from these traits can support that. When we look at these two traits together, they could support using your acoustic knowing in the now to know what leaps to take to break out of homogenization, out of roles that you've been taking on, and to be yourself. Or you could know in the now how to adapt to shocks that come in. Or fear of the future could have you withdrawing rather than adapting to shocks and challenges that come in turn, create even greater fear of the future. That last one is more likely what we'll see happening around us in the not self world. So do your best not to get caught up in that. You've got your strategy and authority to guide you. All right, let's look at our channels now. A reminder that when the transit field creates a channel, everyone in the world that doesn't already have it in their chart is receiving activation of the related traits and qualities. So it has a big impact that way. Well, we've got our long-term channel that's been here since December 26th and is going to be with us until May 13th, where the south and north nodes of the moon are creating the channel of community, a design of a part seeking a whole. The nodes represent our direction, environment, and what we see in the world. We've got the North Node sitting in gate 37, the trait of friendship and family in the emotional center. And the South Node is in gate 40, the trait of deliverance and aloneness in the ego center. This is tribal. It's got that theme of mutual support. So generally, we're going to feel the need for support and to support. We're going to see those who are supported and those who are not. As the design of a part seeking a whole, it's going to bring this sense of this pressure to belong, to find where we belong in our family, in our community, and spiritually in the totality. So that theme is going to be more present. People that don't feel like they belong, well, that's going to be amplified. And that pressure to belong could have people joining groups and communities that actually are not aligned for them. So something to watch for there. Now, this is about also bringing resources in, everybody getting what they need. So it's about bargains and contracts. You give me this, I give you that. You do this for me, I do that for you. Wrapped up in that are themes of loyalty and betrayal, jealousy and friendship, agreements or being taken advantage of, unfairness and fairness. So these are all themes that you can see play out while this is present. As a channel that connects the willpower center to the emotional center, that's going to bring heightening of those, especially for those of you that have one or both of those centers white in your chart, undefined, because you take in and amplify these frequencies. So again, in the world, we're going to see heightened emotionality and we're going to see heightened willpower. In the collective, this can be about trade between communities, regions, and nations. So that's going to be highlighted as well. All right, we've got a medium-term channel that's going to be here for the whole cycle because the sun in gate 51 is connecting with its electromagnetic, gate 25 being activated by Neptune. That is the trait of the spirit of the self, of innocence, and universal love. It's in the G center, which is associated with love, identity, and direction in life. So it's going to be a very powerful channel with the sun being part of it. Now, together, they create the individual channel of initiation, a design of needing to be first. You may receive a pulse of knowing of what leap into the unknown to take to stretch yourself, to adapt, and land on your feet. This can initiate you into a new sense of self, coming more deeply into yourself. You may find yourself testing your limits, and that can be very empowering. This is part of the centering circuit that can support you in accepting yourself as you are, which in turn helps you to stay and be centered in yourself. This is a trait that, when challenged with who wants to go first, is going to step up. In business, this channel brings a quality of uniqueness and pushing into the new that can help an organization really stand out from others. Now, what we most often see play out in the not self world is being very competitive out of the ego, a win at all costs kind of mentality, throwing caution to the wind in a very foolish way. So for this cycle, we've got two channels now activating the willpower center. So for those of you with an undefined ego center, an undefined heart center, which is the majority of people, 65% of people have that willpower center undefined. Be extra careful that you're not making promises or doing things to prove your value. You are inherently of value. All right, we've got 4 channels being created by transits of the moon. So they're just little tasters because the moon only activates a gate or a trait for about 10 or 11 hours, give or take. One is a carryover from the last cycle. It came in on April 4th at 8:10 a.m. and it's going to go until 7:19 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. UTC, it came in April 4th at 2:10 p.m. and is going until the 5th at 1:19 a.m. We have the moon moving into gate 1, the trait of the creative in the G center, connecting with its electromagnetic, gate 8, the trait of contribution in the throat center. Together, they create the channel of inspiration, a design of a creative role model. This is another part of the individual circuitry that can bring through something new and mutative. It allows you to express your uniqueness out into the world and contribute that to others. If you have this channel in your design, part of your role is to be a living example of uniqueness. It is rooted, though, in the knowing that true creative expression is independent of will. You can't just will creative expression on demand. It comes when it comes. Because it goes up to the throat, there can also be this blurting out of your creative expression when it hasn't been invited. And in that case, it's likely to be to the wrong people at the wrong time, won't be recognized, and won't have the desired impact. The next one we have coming in is April 5th at 5:47 p.m., going until the 6th at 5:05 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time. UTC coming in April 5th at 11:47 p.m., going until 11:05 a.m. on the 6th. We have the moon moving into gate 34, the trait of power in the sacral center, connecting with its electromagnetic, gate 57, our Earth's position, the trait of intuitive clarity. Together, they create the channel of power, a design of an archetype. This is the power to individuate as a human, to be uniquely you. The archetype is the archetype of a human. It's also where the intuitive clarity of gate 57 is empowered. All right, next we have coming in April 8th at 2:33 a.m., going until 1:54 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. UTC coming in the 8th at 8:33 a.m., going until 7:54 p.m. The moon moving into gate 10, the trait of behavior of the self and self-love in the G center, connecting with its electromagnetic, or one of its electromagnetics. Gate 57, the trait of intuitive insight, once again in the Splenic Centre. So the 57 to the 10, this creates the channel of perfected form, a design of survival. It's going to bring the individual pressure to enhance the physical form and the forms in our environment. When we do that, it can be very artistic, but it also enhances our ability to survive on this earth plane. All right, next up, it's just going to be a real short one because we're just catching the tail of Venus before it moves out of gate 24. This one's coming in on April 9th at 11:41 p.m., going until the 10th at 4:50 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time. UTC coming in April 10th at 5:41 a.m., going until 10:50 a.m. We have the moon moving into gate 61, the trait of mystery and inner truth, and the head center connecting with its electromagnetic gate 24, the trait of rationalizing in the ajna center, being activated by Venus. This is another individual channel, so it wants to bring through mutation, a pulse of knowing that could potentially be empowering. Together, these two traits create the channel of awareness, a design of a thinker. So it's wanting to know the mysteries of life. And if a pulse of knowing comes in, it's going over it and over it again and again and again to determine, is it really new? Or is it something I already know? Because this mental awareness really wants to bring through something new. So it can be very mentally busy, a lot of busyness with it. What it craves is silence. And what it can bring through is a lot of philosophical conversations. All right, well, that brings us to our long-term transits. The long-term transits are created by the outer planets and the nodes of the moon. They're with us for longer periods of time, years in some cases. And so your not self mind could start to think they're part of you, even when it's not something you have in your own design. And then when that transit moves on, that can be quite confusing to the mind. Well, we have Jupiter and Saturn both changing lines this cycle. And also just before the end of last cycle on April 3rd, the nodes change lines as well. So let's start with the nodes in the transit field because they bring that homogenized perspective and direction and what we'll see in the world. They're really setting the context. Now, as we've already mentioned, the nodes are creating that channel 3740, the channel of community, a design of a part seeking a whole. We've talked about what that brings. And let's specifically look at the line now. So we had this channel in line 4 for quite a long period of time. Now it's moved into line 3. Remember, the nodes move backwards through the lines. For gate 37, the trait of friendship, line 3 is called even-handedness. It has a developmental theme, so something that we learn over time and mature into, that says the success of any group is dependent on maintaining order. In the exaltation, it says the ability to judge what behavior is appropriate and to react in a balanced manner to transgressions. The possibility to have the sensitivity to know what behavior is appropriate in a relationship. Now, this is in the channel of community. The behavior that it's talking about here is the behavior necessary to get the needed resources. In the detriment, it says an ironic tendency to either test incessantly the borders of acceptability or to respond to the very same tendency in others with severity, the possible lack of sensitivity to what behavior is appropriate. Okay, so the rules of behavior per se for getting what you need, getting the resources that are needed, well, getting that from one person, the way you behave can be quite different than how you would behave with another person. And it could also change depending on the situation. Plus, this is in the emotional center. There's also the ups and downs of the way. So depending on where someone is in their way, you may have to approach them differently. And this is the third line. So there's trial and error in this whole process. This is what you're learning. How do you behave when and with whom to get what you need? Gate 40 in the ego center in line 3 is called humility. It also has a developmental theme, something you mature into, that says a calculated mode in deliverance to avoid attracting the attention of negative forces. The exaltation says the subtlety to enjoy deliverance without having to flaunt it, the capacity of the ego to avoid negative forces even if it means being alone. So this exaltation is about enjoying that alone time between periods of providing your will to your family and your communities. In the detriment, it says the ego arrogance that demands attention and gets it. The capacity of the ego to demand attention. Yeah, this is trial and error. And in the trial and error process through life, you find out that you're better off being alone than being with negative forces. For this willpower gate, those negative forces are going to be the people that pull on you to do things you don't want to do, that you don't have the capacity to do, and those that don't appreciate and honor what you do provide. With this trait, you learn over time that it's better to be alone than with those negative forces, and to really just enjoy that quiet alone time for that ego to recuperate. Remember, willpower is not infinite. It pushes and then it needs to relax. All right, moving to the outer planets now. Jupiter sitting in gate 53, the trait of beginnings and development in the root center, with its pressure to start a new experience. It does start the cycle in line 1, but just a few hours later at 5:27 p.m. on the 4th, it's going to move into line 2 called momentum. Here's another developmental theme that says success breeds success. The exaltation says the protection of early success nurtures further achievement. The pressure to start something new based on past success. The detriment says a tendency with early success to haste and imprudent action. The pressure based on success to be impatient for something new. So if this gets activated in your chart, you'll be projecting out that you can start something new and see it through. That's the projection. We're in line 2 here. Well, maybe and maybe not. If you've had success in seeing an experience through, you can use that to build on in starting something new. However, earlier success could also have you be impatient for something new and taking hasty action out of the pressure that this trait brings. Since we see the detriment play out in the collective, we're likely to see people jumping into something new too quickly. And Jupiter is going to expand this quality, whichever way it plays out. Saturn sitting in gate 17, the logical trait of opinions in the Ajna Center, that collects patterns to determine which is best and has an underlying theme of serving and ruling. The keynote for the trait says the ancient laws that those who wish to rule must know how to serve. This is collective, and it's ultimately in service of humanity. Now, gate 17 is quite good at organizing the patterns, the formula, and people, and so on. So if you've got something you have to organize, just having this trait present can be quite helpful. It's going to start the cycle in line 3 called understanding, which has another developmental theme that says the awareness that the best road is not necessarily the most interesting. So here you have to be able to back up your opinions and theories with the details needed for others to understand and be able to experiment with your theory. If you can't do that, it's not going to have value. So the exaltation here says the following of the best road provides the experience necessary to meet the challenge of the road's end. The understanding that the best opinions are grounded in detail. The detriment says the taking of shortcuts. One may get to the end quicker, but essential experience will be missing. The possibility of skipping details and limiting the value of the opinion. Now, Saturn could bring a lot of discipline to this process. And there could be also consequences that you might not like in taking those shortcuts. Now, it is going to move into line 4 on April 9th at 11:16 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. That's really close to the end of the cycle. Line 4 is called the Personnel Manager, and I'll go into its details in the next cycle. We have Uranus sitting in gate 8, the individual trait of contribution and holding together in the throat center. This is the voice of I know I can contribute or not. It continues to sit in line 5 called Dharma. Another developmental theme here that's something that you learn over time and mature into. This is the line of the teacher where you contribute your wisdom and let others go do what they want with it in the exaltation. Or in the detriment, where you don't want to let go of those you contribute to, so you can try to control how they use their contribution, like the parent who can't let go of their child to let them spread their own wings. Neptune sitting in gate 25, the individual trait of the spirit of the self, innocence, and universal love. It's in line 5 called recuperation. Another developmental theme here that says when innocence is sapped of its vitality, healing is the first priority. The exaltation speaks to the power of the spirit to heal and be healed, while the detriment says hypochondria and the need to be healed by others, the weakness of the spirit which requires healing from others. Neptune's veiling quality could make it difficult to know, first of all, that recuperation is needed and how to go about that process, what's really underlying it. So a little bit tricky there. Pluto's sitting in that gate 41, the collective trait of contraction and decrease in the root center. This is the fuel and the pressure to start a new experience, where at the beginning it's about fantasizing about all the experiences you'd like to have and then paring them down to the one you really want. It's sitting in line 4 called correction. Another developmental theme here that says successful adaptation to limitation. Now, the limitation is just that in the root's not an awareness center, it's just a fuel, right? It's the pressure here. And yet, inherent in it, this fourth line kind of knows that there's the potential to fulfill the feeling, and the potential is at the other end of the channel. The next step is in that gate 30. It's electromagnetic, the trait of recognition of feelings and of yearning. So in the exaltation, this is the energy for adaptation, the adaptation that's going to be needed to get the experience eventually. In the detriment, there's the expenditure of energy on maintaining relationships rather than correction. As soon as you invite others into the process, it means there's going to be compromises. You're not going to be able to move through the experience exactly the way you wanted to. And that could result in frustration in the end. Okay, let's look overall now. So our major theme this cycle is really rooted in individuality here, with both the Sun, the Earth, Uranus, and Neptune all activating individual traits. We have the channel of community and channel of initiation through this full cycle, which is a really potent definition the transit field is bringing. Most of the energy of the channel of community does go to the channel of initiation, rather than where instinctively you might think it would go is up the 2145 to the throat through another tribal channel. But in the mystical way, the channel of community is the bridge from the tribal 1949, going from the root to the emotional center, that channel of synthesis, which mystically has us look for authorities outside of ourselves to follow and is really the root of religion. So the bridge of the channel of community really is bridging us out of that into the 5125 channel of initiation to bring us into ourselves as our own authorities. Eventually, that then goes to the 1020 in the mystical way, the channel of awakening that awakens us to our self-reflected consciousness in the now as a unique being. However, gate 25 in that channel of initiation in the G center, it's a gate that we sometimes refer to as the priest or the priestess, that simply initiates us into another homogenized way that cycles us right back down through the channel of community to the 1949 again. We're just another authority outside of yourself that you should follow, and here's our way, rather than finding your own way. So there is an opportunity with this to break free of old roles and live even more as your unique self. I expect, though, since the detriments tend to play out in the not-self world, we're going to see the polarity of increased religious and political rhetoric about who and what you need to be and who you need to follow. Competitiveness, right? That channel of initiation is a design of needing to be first. within the context of communities. So competitiveness between communities, groups, nations may increase out of the ego pressure to prove oneself. Communities may be initiated in a shocking way into unexpected challenges, particularly around the attainment of resources. If the unhealthy ego can get out of its own way, there could also be the possibility for unique and mutative contributions to the community, to how to manage resources so that everyone does have what they need. Now, remember that the transit field brings the traits that have the potential to homogenize us to their conditioning. And so it's what we see play out in the world where most people are in the not self rather than living their unique designs. With awareness, you can observe and learn from these frequencies rather than having them run you. Now, that brings us to the end of the cosmic weather for this cycle. If you want to run your own chart, you can go to jovianarchive.com. If you're new to human design and just want to understand the basics of the body graph at a high level, what's the black and the red about, the different geometric shapes, a bit of background on the system, feel free to grab my free Human Design Basics mini course. It's at margotgfraser.com/human-design. If you enjoyed this podcast, I'm always so grateful if you can give it a like and consider subscribing if it's correct for you. Okay, so with this cycle, there's going to be that opportunity to take courageous leaps into the unknown, to stretch your limits, and potentially to be attuned to what's safe and healthy for you in the moment, and to be able to learn and adapt to any shocks, any challenges that come in. Watch, though, for being overly competitive to try to prove yourself, and beware of that fear of the future that could come in. Remember that if you're worried about the future and the unexpected, do your best to come back to the present and be open to the support of the transit field for adapting to the shocks and change, even when the not self world around you might seem chaotic and fearful. Most of all, stay present to what's coming through your own strategy and authority. Have a great cycle. Be kind to one another, and may you know, love, and live the magic of your true nature. Until next time, bye for now.